Yo, 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 welcome back to another episode of the No Hedging Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ty the Jet. I got my co-host here, Mr.
Rip 16 to go.
Yes, sir, and we're back with Week 14 takeaways, man. We're going to recap.
We're back with a wild one.
Yeah, we're going to recap some of the games this week, man, and just jump right into it. But before we get into that, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all your support up to this point, and we want to make sure that we keep providing more and more content and more videos in regards to sports. So make sure you guys do that. We appreciate it. But let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it, man. As far as Week 14 takeaways, what is one of your top takeaways from this weekend?
As they say, this week was one of them ones.
Mm-hmm.
One of my first takeaways, don't know if you are aware of this, but the Pittsburgh Steelers have unfortunately ended my Thursday night football streak. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, but I believe I've gotten every single Thursday night football game correct. With the exception of the fucking Steelers losing to the Patriots. Now, I knew going into this game, we got backup quarterback going against backup quarterback. We got two good coaches going against each other, but it's a home game for the Steelers. And as we had discussed, Mitchell Trubisky, he started before. Yeah. He has a little bit more experience than Zappy has starting. Mm-hmm. They bring Zappy in when they get pissed off at Mac Jones, then they pull Zappy when they get happy with Mac Jones. Dealing. And Zappy was out there wheeling and dealing. So, as we discovered, again, the Patriots defense can play some defense. Mm-hmm. But they actually put some points on the board this time.
Yeah, some terrible turnovers by Trubisky.
Yeah. But it was a couple games like that, including the Jets game. Mm-hmm. We actually seen them put some points on the board.
30 points.
So it was some teams this week where I was surprised. One of my takeaways.
In the second half, I think, those 30 points. Yeah.
They scored a gang of them.
30 points.
So one of my biggest takeaways was that it's some teams that we've discussed that can't score the ball, and that's some of their biggest issues, one being the Patriots, one being the Jets. Mm-hmm. And they actually scored some touchdowns this week, which was a shocker. So that was one of my takeaways to watch out. I don't know if this is a result of it being later in the season and we got some coaches, at this point may not be playing for much in terms of playoffs or Super Bowl aspirations.
It's pride, man.
But some of it is jobs. Like
pride and jobs.
Later on in the season, like that record's still going to add up to something. They're going to look and see like, okay, can this coach really coach? Mm-hmm. Or can these players really ball? Should we be dealing them out? So I don't know if some of these teams are stepping up just for jobs and money's sake at this point. But I think a lot of that is going on, especially with teams like the Jets, the Patriots. The Jets aren't completely out of it yet, but they out of it.
They're done.
They're out of it, yeah. But numerically they're not out of it. Yeah. So that's what I mean. But yeah, that was one of my takeaways, and that's something I'll definitely be more precautious of going into Week 15.
Yeah. I got you. So one of my things was I'm going to talk about one of the big games was the Cowboys and the Eagles, right? Obviously, it's a rematch.
Yeah.
Like I said before, one of the previous videos, Philadelphia kind of got away with one, with that first win that they had versus the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, they felt like they had a chance of winning that game.
They had a chance.
And and it really showed that they were the most dominant team Sunday night. So, Philadelphia, they have issues in their secondary. They're not running the football as effectively as they should be. Why that is, no idea. But as far as like their defense is giving up too many passing yards, and we talked about this over the past couple weeks. But to their defense, they have pretty much been in the playoffs for the past month. You know what I'm saying? They've been playing playoff type teams in the past month. The Chiefs, the Bills.
And they're probably going to have to play Cowboys, a couple of these guys again.
Right. So that stretch, they had a tough stretch of 4 weeks. I think they kind of get better.
Yeah.
They got Seattle, I think, next. So I think they rebound off of that because they dealt with that stretch. So
yeah,
the end of their season is pretty easy. They got the Giants twice, and Seattle, and I think they have. I think Washington. No, they play Washington twice, but whoever else, I think is an easy win for them. But their defense is showed that they need some help and they need to step up. Dallas on the flip side of that, Dak Prescott been playing lights out. He's been playing very well over the past 6 weeks, and he continued to do so offensively, throwing the ball.
Is he still your leading MVP?
Yeah, right now he's leading the MVP. Between him and Brock Purdy, those two guys are like 1 and 2.
They're still on Purdy's head. They don't believe it.
Yeah, they don't believe it. I believe it. So they still 1 and 2. They ran the ball very well too. They with Tony Pollard and Dowdle, they ran the ball against Philadelphia very well. Mm-hmm. They pretty much they took the ball away. Their defense did what their defense do. Right? They stripped, had some fumbles. Smitty, AJ Brown, and Jalen Hurts all fumbled the rock.
Right.
So turnovers, their defense forced turnovers. The only points that Philadelphia really had touchdown-wise came from the defense of them getting the strip sack fumble return for a touchdown on Dak Prescott. So the Dallas defense really showed out. They showed out. They committed the turnovers. You turn the ball over 3 times, it's going to be hard for you to win a game. And then you got an offense like Dallas does as far as throwing the ball across the field with the potential MVP in Dak Prescott. It spells trouble. So Dallas did a good job getting that win. It was a dominant fashion. Philadelphia needs some help. But that was one of my takeaways from the weekend too.
Okay. I think like we talked about before, I think Philly is just kind of tired and had a lot of games in a short time frame. And they got some very tough opponents. Maybe we'll see an improvement out of them in week 15. Another one of my takeaways, Monday Night Madness. Okay, we had a doubleheader on Monday Night Football, and the Giants beat the Packers.
You see it. 6.5 point underdogs at home.
6.5 point underdogs at home. They came in one. Tommy
you
DeVito.
Packers bettors out there, I know you probably rolling over in your graves. Your money is rolling over in the grave right now because you shouldn't have bet the Packers minus 6.5.
Yeah. I never liked the points.
Juiced up on Jordan Love, and he showed you who he really is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
Well, some of that was just back and forth with the drives. The defense, Jordan Love came down there, to his credit, he got in the end zone. Mm-hmm. But, the defense couldn't turn around and stop the Giants from turning around and getting back down there to close it out at the end of the game. We also saw the Miami Dolphins go through a horrendous last 3 minutes of the game.
Yeah, terrible. Awful.
2 minutes and 40 seconds left, to be exact.
14-point lead.
14-point lead with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. And it was a major collapse. I don't know what that was. I don't know how. But somehow, these guys managed to drive down the field, get on the board. Then they go for a 2 in one of those. I think they went for 2. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in there. Somehow in there. Cause
I think they did and they got it.
Yeah, I think they went for 2 and got it. So then they were down by 6. Mm-hmm. And then they go down and they get another touchdown. Somehow, after the Dolphins call questionable plays for that drive in between, they went 4 and out.
3 and out.
Well, 3 and out, I'm sorry. They went 2 run plays, and they didn't have Tyreek Hill on the field at all during those run plays, not even as a decoy. I know Tyreek was injured, which I think is a huge part, which I also think boosts his, for me, conversation for an MVP candidate, just because when he was out, the offense looked
dysfunctional.
Yeah, it looked completely dysfunctional. Yeah, and Jalen Waddle was having a solid game, but they still weren't producing enough.
Yeah,
against a Tennessee defense that is decent.
Yeah, that offense is built around him 100%.
But the offense is built around him, and you could see it. Like, they weren't producing. Mostert had a good game. Waddle was doing pretty good receiving, but it still wasn't enough for them to really just break out.
Yeah.
And when they did break out, the defense was playing well most of the game, except for maybe the Chubb penalty where they had the unsportsmanlike conduct slamming his helmet. Then they come down, they get a touchdown right before half. That was a crucial play in the game. But I'm thinking with 14 points, 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, this game is over. It's a wrap.
The Miami bettors out there, that Miami 13.5 was looking real good.
It was looking real good until it wasn't.
That money is rolling in his grave.
That money's rolling in his grave real hard. But it was crazy because Tennessee came back and they pulled it off. Now, I don't know if that was more of a credit to a Miami collapse or more of a credit to Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans, putting together a very nice campaign. But
listen,
it was ugly.
It was a collapse on Miami's behalf, and credit to the Tennessee Titans. They kept fighting. You know what I'm saying? Even they got down. It was pretty bad early. That pick six inside the 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To a lineman on the screen pass.
Oh my God.
It was kind of bad. But for Will Levis to be able to push through that and not let it get into his head and still push the ball down the field.
He did. He didn't give up. DeAndre Hopkins, who we thought was going to be a non-factor, actually was a huge factor in that game.
Over 100 yards. I think he had like 120-some yards or something like that.
Yeah, he was everywhere, man.
And
the ball was like air yesterday.
Yeah.
So him and Saquon had a crucial fumble.
He did.
He had a crucial fumble in that game, and the Giants still fought back and recovered. So that Giants defense,
Tommy DeVito, man,
and DeVito, pushing it down the field. DeVito making some plays happen.
Had about a minute and 20-some seconds on the final drive. Went like 4-4, 5-for-5 completions, pushing the ball down the field. Had 2 timeouts.
Is DeVito better than Daniel Jones?
I mean, we don't know that, but I would say this: on primetime games, DeVito is 1-0. Daniel Jones is like 1-11 or some shit like that on primetime games. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying.
This season, DeVito, I think his starting games is like 3-0 or 3-1 or something like that. Starting games.
I'm
Daniel
just
Jones
wondering.
this season 1-5. So
I'm just wondering. And I know to Daniel Jones' credit, they didn't have Saquon for a gang of those games.
Right.
So that definitely changed their offense. But
let's just say
Saquon should have got the money.
To be determined.
To be determined.
We'll see. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, the Giants defense, man, that's pretty much what it was. It was the Giants defense that really showed up. Has 3 turnovers, interception, 2 fumble recoveries. And the Giants defense continuously gives the offense opportunities to, score points, right? So our offense isn't that good, right? It's hard for us to score points and move the football. That didn't show too much, as much this game in the second half. First half, it was crazy. It was bad. But when your defense gives your offense multiple opportunities to score, get in the red zone, then eventually they're going to score points. You know what I'm saying? Even if they do go 3 and out here, 3 and out there, punt the football on the drive or whatever the case may be, eventually they're going to score some points and win games. So that's what they did, and I think the Giants defense deserve a lot of credit. The Giants offensive line deserve a lot of credit because he didn't get sacked that game. You know what I'm saying? And he was coming in. He had like 20 sacks in the last 3-4 games that he played, 20-something sacks. So sacked a lot in previous games, but this game, he wasn't sacked that much. So shout out to them and go Big Blue, man. Y'all see it. We're here 3 games in a row. We're fucking 5-8 right now.
Yeah, something like that.
We looking pretty good. We're not out of it. But we'll see what happens. We got some games. We got New Orleans next week. We got Philadelphia twice. We'll see what happens.
The problem is you got the Eagles and the Cowboys in front of you, and that is essentially putting y'all out of it.
But we can possibly get into a wild card spot. Possibly. We'll see.
Y'all gonna need a lot more defense.
But speaking of the playoffs, I want to kind of lean into the AFC. Okay. Right, and the division leaders in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. Just overall, we're going to talk about it. The Baltimore Ravens, obviously, they're the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. Mm-hmm. The Kansas City Chiefs, they took a loss. And then the Miami Dolphins, they took a loss. So those were like the three top teams in the AFC. Buffalo, they won this week on the road against the Chiefs, so they fought their way. They're fighting their way into a playoff spot. Like I said, look out for Buffalo. Buffalo is playing desperate football. They're winning games. They're building confidence, and they're going to probably work their way into the playoffs the next couple of weeks.
They won a game.
Yeah, keep a lookout for Buffalo. They're one of the best teams. With Houston dialing it back, right? Houston dialing it back. Jacksonville probably would dial it back a little bit.
When we say Houston is dialing it back, that's what you think Houston is dialing it back?
They're not in the playoffs. They're not going to be in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? I don't think Houston is going to be in the playoffs. I think Buffalo is a better football team.
But their whole division pretty much stayed the same, though. It's not like they just lost a whole bunch of contention with this because the Jags lost, the Texans lost, the Colts lost.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee's the only one who won, but Tennessee is so far down there that they don't really have much of a shot of catching up. So, I mean, essentially the standing for the division is still the same, and Trevor Lawrence should not have been playing, frankly.
Nah. But they
tried to give him some. They tried to give him some of that Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl juice to get him back out there on the field, and the shit didn't work.
Yeah.
So they got beat pretty bad.
No, they lost by 5.
They lost by 4 points against the Browns,
5,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot of that catching up was later on in the game, garbage time.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked like they were getting beat up.
Yeah, they were.
Most of the game.
They were. He was throwing interceptions, turning the ball over. Yeah,
and that's what I meant by they was losing pretty bad. Now, the scoreboard isn't going to reflect that.
Yeah.
But they were getting beat up that game, and but they're still pretty much in the same position as they were going into that game.
Yeah, I mean, they'll win the
two
division.
Teams behind them lost.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So they'll win I'm thinking they'll still win the division because the only opportunity that the Texans really have, the Texans not going to win the division. The Colts not going to win the division. I think Jacksonville is too many games ahead for the Texans or the Colts to win the division. Now, what's at stake here is a wild card spot, right? So when we're talking about wild card spots, you're looking at the Bills, right? You're looking at Houston. You're looking at the Browns. You know what I'm saying? These are teams that actually have, legitimate chances to get into the wild card spot. I just don't think with the Houston Texans they have a shot because of the injury now to C.J. Stroud, the missing
Tank Dell
being out, right? And I told you that's going to be a big impact.
Dalton Schultz, my bad.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz is out, so they're losing. They losing
back,
pieces. So I don't think they'll be able to withstand, coming up to get into that spot. So I think.
What about the Colts?
The Colts, I just don't think the Colts are good enough to be a playoff contender. I think Buffalo will end up playing well. I think it's going to be between Buffalo and Cleveland that's going to get in those playoff spots.
Oh, the Browns is right there.
Yeah,
they're right there. So, 4 different quarterbacks. We kind of talked about that takeaway. 4 different starting quarterbacks this season, and they have still managed to put together a winning season so far. They're 3 games over 500, and they are definitely in the hunt for a wild card spot. So I think the Browns are playing very commendable. I don't know where they found Joe Flacco at. I don't know if they found him at a Ruby Tuesday, a Applebee's, a Fridays, posted up, getting some drinks at the bar, and was like, "Hey,
there's a report. There's a report. There's a report that he was out in his front yard blowing leaves when he got the call.
And he said, "Y'all want me?" He said, "Me?" But it worked out. I don't know how this guy's out here doing this. He had like 17 fantasy points the first time, 20-something the second one. The boy out there getting some yards. He making some plays, man.
Throwing touchdowns, man.
He's throwing tutties. So he had Njoku looking like a Pro Bowler.
Right. Because Njoku was catching the ball finally. He had issues with dropping balls for the most part this season. But
Joe is floating it in his hand, though. He's floating it in the spot where you want to catch it,
Yeah, he looking like, Baltimore Ravens Joe Flacco. He's pushing the ball down the field, throwing it.
With that being said, it's definitely an interesting picture, especially for that wild card spot. I just was kind of wondering what you thought about it just because of the injuries to 2 top quarterbacks. It kind of opens it up for the Colts, who are only 1 game behind the Jaguars, but we'll see.
I think the AFC teams that's getting in the playoffs, I think it's going to be the Ravens, I think it's going to be the Browns. I think it's going to be the Jags. I think the Dolphins, the Chiefs, right? I think
the Bills.
The Bills, and I'm missing one. What am I missing? Who am I missing?
You said AFC, right?
Yeah, the AFC. I'm missing one.
You got.
Yeah, I'm missing one.
Maybe the Broncos on a wild card spot, perhaps.
Yeah, Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, Browns, Jags, and it could be Colts or Broncos.
Colts or Broncos.
Yeah,
take that
Colts
last
or Broncos. So that's what I'm thinking in the AFC. I think it's that bottom part of the AFC is pretty much wide open, man. They fighting to try to get in there.
That's what I'm saying.
For that wild card
it ain't
spot.
looking so ugly as you think for them Colts, man.
It's not. But obviously the Ravens, I believe, are the best team in the AFC right now, even though they've been getting in dogfights. They get in dogfights with everybody. But at the end of the day, they win the game. You know what I'm saying? And they still got that spot. So, that game against the Rams brought everything they had in that game to try to win it.
I kind of expected that, though.
Yeah, I expected it.
Because we both said, like, the Rams, we like the Ravens to win, but we don't like these points.
No,
7 was not good.
It was too many.
They ended up going to overtime, and they ended up winning off of a kick return.
Yeah, punt return
in overtime.
Walk off.
So, they won by 6, which is not 7 last time I checked. So I mean, yeah, they do get into dogfights, but they do find a way to win the game. And I think a lot of it is just the run style, bruising, switching in all these running backs. You got a speedster, you got a quarterback who's taking off or run pass options. You got a traditional running back in Gus Edwards, and then you still got Justice Hill, who they throw in here every now and then as a wild card. So, I think that bruises a lot of teams. Trying to play against that can be very tough. You had a great game out of Likely, filling in for the injured for the season, Mark Andrews. So, they might get Mark back in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what they're
possibility is what they're thinking. But Likely showed that he can be a receiving tight end.
He's solid.
He showed it, but he's been used more as a blocking tight end with Mark Andrews out there, but he showed that he can be a solid receiving tight end because he had a good game, very good game this past weekend.
Yeah, so. OBJ had one too. You know what I'm saying? A couple of deep shots down the field. OBJ catching them. They're making a little bit of a connection and whatnot, so it's good to see that.
Okay.
Now we shifting to the NFC.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much it is to say about the NFC. I mean, I think
that bottom area is
very
NFC South is still up for grabs.
Yeah, you got 3 teams at 6 and 7. The Falcons have to play the Saints and the Panthers.
Still up for grabs.
The Buccaneers are at the top statistically based on, I believe it's on strength of opponents or something they're ahead in, because they got the same record and they split with the Falcons. So I think it's strength of opponent or something that has them at the top, and they might have beat this. They beat the Saints also. So it's an interesting place for that whole NFC South. Yeah, it's still standing there. The Falcons had a blunder late in that game. Defense gave up some stuff. It was some costly penalties. It was one that was kind of questionable, but I attribute that to the Falcons.
But it's Arthur Smith's fault, from what I heard.
They say it's Arthur Smith's fault?
I mean, that's
they find somebody new
that's
to blame.
That's the blasphemy I hear every time.
They find somebody new to blame.
I don't hear Arthur Smith being at fault when they win, but when they lose, it's Arthur Smith's fault. That's all I'm gonna say. But
yeah, it was defense. It was defense. They gave up points late in the game and clearly passing situations.
That's my argument.
I mean, they're giving up. They're getting defensive pass interference. They're getting penalties. You can't do that.
Right. When the Bills needed to stop Kansas City from getting a game-winning drive, they did what they had to do. The defense did what they had to do. Granted, it was a questionable call that the Chiefs are mad about, which is actually a legitimate call, penalty, so I understand that. But nevertheless, the defense did what they had to do to stop the game-winning touchdown drive.
Yeah, man. So there's a lot of stuff really wide open for these last spots. There's a couple division leaders that made some moves that stamped them. But it's a couple of guys who left the door wide open.
The Lions
being one of them.
Yeah,
they left. They did something.
Yeah, they
I had the Bears winning that game though. Yeah. I didn't think they would win it that convincingly.
Yeah,
but they won that game convincingly.
But it's just Jared Goff, man. He does not play well outside. And the Bears, they had the game won weeks ago.
Yeah,
they probably went in here with confidence, like, all right, we at home.
We can beat them.
We can beat these dudes, especially at home. We're going to beat them. So I think that gave them a little bit of juice, and, you were right on that.
Fortunately for the Lions fans, he only, I believe the remainder of his games are indoor.
Yeah, they are.
So you got Jared Goff indoors, so that should allow y'all to secure a division spot, the division leading spot somewhere in these next couple weeks. But the Vikings still on y'all ass. I don't know how they won
3-0.
3-0. We thought 6-0 was bad when the Chargers beat the Patriots.
Right.
And then the Vikings said, hold my beer. they came out here and won 3-0.
Bro, the score was 0-0 for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah.
Until it was less than 2 minutes or some shit like that. Wasn't
the point spread like 3?
The point spread was 3. Like the fuck?
Yeah, so that was just atrocious in a lot of ways.
A hideous game.
Justin Jefferson came back, and then Justin Jefferson didn't come back.
2 catches, and that was done.
3 targets, 2 catches, and he's in the locker room. I said, my fantasy was pissed. But luckily, the person I was playing against did worse.
Yeah.
But
yeah, NFC, obviously, I think NFC, best team in the NFC right now is the San Francisco 49ers, obviously. I think following up after that, you got the Dallas Cowboys. After that, that's where it kind of gets a little shaky, to be honest, right? No, I'm just kidding. You got the Eagles. I still think the Eagles are good. So you got
the Cowboys, the Lions, the Eagles.
Yep, Lions.
The Buccaneers. And after that, I don't know, bro.
It's open. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
People started giving the
Vikings
Packers
probably gonna get in there because of the defense. I mean, they managing to win games by 3 with 3-point score. So hey,
right.
I gotta think they fighting.
Right.
so
or if it plays out, NFC South might have 2 teams going there. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy.
The way things going right now, we might.
Yeah. So
but
it's wild. It's the wild. This is the part of the year where everything's get crazy and teams are winning and they're not supposed to. Teams are losing and they're not supposed to. It's all about who's showing up, who's coming to play that day, right? Who's more prepared. So these games could go either way.
This is what they mean by any given Sunday.
Yeah.
If we sound like we're all over the place in this vid, it's probably because the league is all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. All over the place.
So with that being said, those are our takeaways for the week 14 of this NFL chaotic season.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure y'all stay tuned. Like, share, comment, subscribe.
Got the picks coming up.
And we got some picks coming up for week 15, I'm sorry. So we just got y'all prepped up to speed of all this chaos that just happened in week 14. But that is to get you ready for this thing we like to call the rundown so that we can give you our best bets, week 15 predictions, and hopefully win a gang of money. That's always the goal.
Yeah.
So, y'all stay tuned, man.
Appreciate y'all for listening and watching, man. Peace. All over the place.